Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to be talking about the special 2-hour episode that was done right at the end of Season 8, A Decade of the Waltons. This special episode was written by Earl Hamner and directed by Harry Harris and Philip Leacock. In this segment, Earl Hamner does a lot of on-screen narration. It's one of the only times we actually see Earl on camera, other than in the Season 2 episode, The Journey, when he did a flashback sequence as Maggie's husband, and they danced together. So since then, this was about the only time we saw Earl on camera. So he narrates. What's going on is the family is putting together a birthday celebration for Grandma, and they're putting together a photo album. So as they are finding various different things to put into the photo album, it prompts different flashbacks to episodes from over the seasons. Some of the flashback scenes had, I'm sure, different significance for Earl. There's one where they find a poem that John Boy wrote for Marcia Woolery in Season 1, and I'm sure this had special meaning for Earl, as did the flashback to the scene where John Boy's trying to write and all of his siblings end up in his bedroom. And for one reason or another, we're all gathered there. We each have a reason for coming in and bothering him, and it had to be something that Earl probably experienced a fair bit as the oldest of 8 children in real life. The Baldwins are going to be included in the album as well as a flashback to when John Boy first asked to borrow their papa's typewriter. And he explains about how he's writing a story, and one of the things he's talking about is the night that he went to look for his daddy, and they stopped by to see about borrowing some gas. And I thought this was nice that even though it's a Walton thing, there is this look back to the homecoming. In talking about the era, they also show old footage from the Depression and from the Dust Bowl. Of course, there was the episode we did, the Dust Bowl Cousins, but I thought it was interesting that they chose to utilize some actual footage to represent and visualize what was really going on in the hard times that the country had experienced then. He mentions various different things that touched the family, including polio, although I don't believe this is something I ever heard had happened in Earl's real life. I don't believe his own mother ever had polio. And that episode was written by John McGreevy, and within the background of that, John talks about how they did research about polio and various different treatments of that era. So I think that was a fictionalized story. One of the sections of narration that Earl does particularly spoke to me now looking back after all these years about what Earl was trying to accomplish with the Waltons. And he was talking about the characters in the family dramas at that time. And he says that they didn't reflect the events that took place in the previous episode, and that they were determined to design each episode of the Waltons as if it were a chapter in a continuing novel. And if we've been successful, it's because our audience recognizes our characters as human, endowed with strengths and weaknesses, reaching out to those around them for warmth and support and affirmation. And we've found drama in the simplest of situations, in the homely setting of a kitchen, in an exchange between young and old members of the same family. He goes on to say, mostly on the series, what we've always tried to do is to entertain, to tell a story, and we hoped a good story. But as time passed, it turned out we were doing something in addition. We were celebrating some values in American life that go back to pioneer times. And that sentiment he chose to visualize by pulling footage from a family scene where we're having a picnic around Drusilla's pond. And just that simplicity, again, of family and sharing and doing simple things, and that the drama came from that, and the characters and the humanization of these characters. Mama is asked what her favorite birthday was, and she said that's simple, and it was when John Boy read her a poem as her birthday present. So once again, touching on the fact that the most important things in life are not about money and the things we buy, but about the moments shared and those moments of love and the sense of accomplishment in life. Earl also touched on how older people were often considered less valuable in society, and perhaps even as shown on TV, but that in the series, they chose to portray the older family members as vital and alive, and that was a choice that Earl and the team made. Other standout moments Earl chose to highlight were the arrival of Corabeth, and we find out that she is John's second cousin. So her addition to the cast as a recurring character of Corabeth Godsey when she marries Ike. Then when Olivia had a sit-down strike, which was a really fun moment and a fun scene that, and we see another side of Olivia when she's just had enough of all of this. And I'm sure that was the case at time for Earl's own mother. Also, the house burning down, and which was a critical incident for both the family and I think for the audience to watch. That was incredibly dramatic. And how even in the midst of all of that tragedy, that when Olivia is ready to give up and feeling hopeless, that John can always charm her and make her smile and lift her spirits. So just that testament to the relationship that was created by the writers and then in the portrayal by Ralph and Michael. At the dinner for Grandma, once again, we focus on how much those dinner scenes and the family meal and sharing that time together, how that was really a cornerstone of the family and something that was always focused on, and that Earl talks about. That was the time when everyone came together and shared the events of the day and had this opportunity to reconnect. We flash back on Mary Ellen's wedding to Kurt and allude to the drama that led up to that. Then we also see when Grandma was coaching John Boy about delivering a sermon when Reverend Fordwick's going to be away. And I've been asked about, there's a moment where she keeps she's pounding and she keeps knocking the pages. I think there may have been some of that was intentional, but then I think one of the last times when it happened, and she picks it up, and I'm pretty sure it was an ad lib when she said, "Don't let that happen on the pulpit." So some of those moments just catch me, and that's my sense of that moment. I was so pleased that the firestorm was included in a flashback, that just so emotional, touching scene of the book burning and the absolutely stunning work of John Ritter and Richard Thomas and Nora Marlowe as Mrs. Bremer, and what that all represented in that moment and in history, and as just a eternal message, I think, for all of us. John Boy's final episode, when he's going to be leaving to go to New York, and he makes that choice. And that was such a tough episode for all of us, because we knew it was going to be Richard's last episode as a regular cast member, even though he came back and even though he was a part of our life and still is a part of our life. I don't know, I look back at that and it still makes me cry. So I don't know how you feel, but it's always emotional to me. Grandpa trying to visit Grandma in the hospital and being banned. Kurt bans him and explains that Grandpa needs to let them care for her so she can come back. And then, of course, some other standout things. The first grandchild, John Curtis, being born at home. And then that incredibly heartwarming episode of Grandma Comes Home when we see her back. And that just so beautiful, touching, emotional scene of Olivia and Grandma snapping beans, and that just important message of her wanting to be needed. And what that does transformationally with Grandpa when he confesses he read her diary, her journal, because he wanted to know what was going on. And then the confrontation with Grandma about him saying that, he recognizes that she made a vow that if God would let her come back, that she wouldn't be harsh, that she would just be sweet, tempered, and that she felt that her losing her speech and having that stroke was a punishment for having been harsh. And Grandpa saying, he also made a vow that if she came back, he would not make her lift a finger, and that he's going to break his promise. So he expects her to break hers. And he hands her that broom and she whacks him with it. And we have that joyful moment when he says, "You're back." Michael has said she thinks one of her favorite episodes is the anniversary, when John and Olivia celebrate their 25th anniversary, and they dance and they sip champagne, and the singing around the piano was another iconic thing that brings back so many memories and was present in so many episodes. And then, of course, Grandpa's death, and he talks about how Wilger passed away between seasons and that we didn't get to say goodbye to him. And so they chose to do the episode The Empty Nest, where the cast had an opportunity and the audience had an opportunity to experience that farewell to Will and to Grandpa, and that beautiful scene around the gravestone when we each say something to him about our lives and about going forward. And that so touching moment when I'm holding John Curtis and I talk about how he reaches out to people, and the spontaneity of the young toddler actually doing that was completely spontaneous, but so perfect in the moment with the words that I was scripted to say. And then we have a beautiful photo of Earl with his real life parents and siblings. Now, for the real life section of this show, they created a set that's on stage 26, but they've created something that looks like an office. And we are sort of now in the present time, and we're going to have a chance to meet our counterparts. We were in Hollywood or in Burbank at the Burbank Studios, Warner Brothers, on that soundstage, and they were all filmed in different parts of Virginia or wherever it was that they were living at the time. And then there was a split screen that created that. I do not remember I don't think we could see what they did. I don't know if they could see when they shot them. I think they shot ours first and theirs after. Chances are it was all when we were talking back and forth. Somebody was reading the replies to what we were asking them. And I could tell with them that they were reading cue cards at times. Some of them were better at it than others. But hey, they weren't the professional actors. So hopefully ours sounded a lot more spontaneous. We see here Cammie, who played Elizabeth, with her real life counterpart, Nancy Hamner Jamerson. Nancy passed away in 2022. David, who played Jim Bob, with his counterpart, James Hamner, who passed away in 2004. And he does share that he did bring home a peacock in real life. Now we see John, who played Jason, with Cliff Hamner. And Cliff passed away in 1990. And he confesses that he couldn't carry a tune. You see me here with Marion Hamner Hawks, who was the real life Mary Ellen, and passed away in 2004. And she says she was a terrible tomboy in real life, and she did become a nurse. She married a doctor of psychology, and he was a professor. And that when she came on to the set to visit at one point, she got to be in the episode we were filming at the time. I do not know what episode that was. And if I ever come across that information, I will let you know. And if one of you knows what it was, please let me know. Then we had Eric, who played Ben. And Eric's character, Ben, was the composite of two of Earl's actual real-life brothers. He had two siblings, and CBS, when he was doing the homecoming, said there's too many children and asked him to combine two. So they combined his brother Paul and his brother Bill into the character of Ben. Bill passed away in 1989. Paul, I believe, is still living. I wasn't able to find anything in my research that showed that he has passed away. So hopefully he is still with us. And then Mary, who played Erin, the real life Erin, Audrey Hamner Hankins, she passed away in 2021. And she said that she did have about as many boyfriends as Erin had, but then she did settle down and marry and has for children. They put together some beautiful footage of the area of Schuyler where Earl grew up, and it's about 28 miles from Charlottesville. And he said it still feels as if nothing has changed. We see him arrive back at his family home and greet his mother, Doris. And Doris was a consultant on the show throughout, and I'm sure Earl frequently had conversations with her, probably asked her questions. I expect even her advice on certain things at times, and I'm sure a lot of her memories contributed to episodes that were written. He said at that point in time when this was filmed, his mother still lived there. Since that time, she has passed away. His own father passed away in 1969 and never had a chance to see either The Homecoming or the series of The Waltons. And Earl said that whenever he goes back home, he always goes and visits his father's gravestone. So nice that he has those memories. In talking with his mother there, she said that she feels that children need the same things today from their parents, that they need to be guided and to be loved. And she said one of the things she was often asked was whether in real life the children were as well behaved as they seemed to be on the show. And she said she tells them that they were. So we get the sense that they weren't, but she tells them that they were. And then we wrap up the entire show with real good nights as Earl joins us at the kitchen table on the set, and we say goodnight to each other for real. And again, such a touching moment. I loved having a chance to look back at this episode that I haven't watched in years. And it just brought so many memories back for me. And to hear Earl's words about the show and what they were trying to do and to recognize how well they succeeded in doing that, I think is just so wonderful. So thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time for more behind the scenes of the Waltons. If you enjoy this, please do hit like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.